This is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. This morning, let's explore both the 7th and 8th passages of the meditation manual known as Spaciousness of Dorje Sempa, composed oh so many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer Dorje. Real meditation is effortless letting go in the true condition. This true condition never appears to us as something which can be seen. Striving to grasp it, we prevent the recognition of its true nature. Nor can the supreme secrecy of the primal continuum be revealed by hearing about it. Nor can words reveal its nature, even in the barest measure. So there's a fancy phrase, primal continuum. It's sometimes described as the true condition, and that sounds very mysterious. It could also be described as reality as it is. We perceive it. The question is, how do we perceive it? We are warned that the true condition never appears to us as something which can be seen. Striving to grasp it, we prevent the recognition of its true nature. What does that mean? It means that if we actively strive to concentrate on our perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, if we actively strive to analyze our perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, we're not going to experience a liberating perception of reality. What then will we experience? Well, that question is best answered by neuroscience. Whoops. There we go. So I'm going to tap button 9 and subject you to some diagrams. When we actively, the only way for us to actively focus and actively analyze is in reliance upon our dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortex. That's great. But any tool that can be used can also be abused. The same surgical implements that can be used to save a life can be used to commit murder. Just ask Jack the Ripper. So when we overwork the front of our brain, we can so exhaust our prefrontal cortex that we wind up presenting with symptoms of depression, no less triggering our amygdala, which functions as the seat of both anxiety and aggression. So how darkly ironic is it that in the name of peace and love, we venture on a path that tears us further away from peace and love? What's the solution? Just as Scotty used to chime on the original series, "Aye laddie, the right tool for the right job," similarly, when it comes to mindfulness and meditation, using the right tool is crucial. Consider, if you will, our autonomic nervous system, known simply as our spinal cord. When we take a break from actively competing against it and begin to passively cooperate with it, fMRI studies demonstrate that the anxiety, the amygdala and its anxiety and aggression, calm. And the anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy, is stimulated. That's fabulous. Let's take a deeper look. We'll begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which could be described as the hub of our sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. All of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do with that which we have noticed? It's simple. In a word, the answer is meditation. You see, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we've evolved to automatically access the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord. When these two extremes, as a team, could be described as the hub of our parasympathetic nervous system, which have evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that which we notice during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. So this experience is not permanent. It's fleeting. It only lasts at most until our next inhalation, when the cycle begins afresh. Why then do we practice this? We do not practice this to push away experiences we don't like. We practice this. We cooperate with our autonomic nervous system so we can become more peaceful and more loving. We cooperate with our autonomic nervous system so we can be liberated by not the intellectual experience, but the visceral experience of impermanence, as well as experience greater love for others that is seen in our intentions and communications and conduct and commerce. We cooperate with our autonomic nervous system so that our choices and utterances and deeds flow, not from calculated contrivance, not from wild scatterness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. This has been described as right effort or effortless effort or wu wei or going with the flow. This, in turn, ensures that we use all the organelles of our central nervous system the most sustainable and a productive way. This is the key to experiencing genius on tap. Now let's go back to this morning's teaching text. The true condition, reality as it is, does not come from striving, does not come from active focus or active analysis. How does it and it creates the fatigue, the intellectual fatigue and the emotional fatigue and the motivational fatigue that undermine our capacity to recognize the true nature of everything. What's the true nature of everything? Well, let's go back to our set of diagrams. As we relax into our exhalation, that which we noticed during our previous inhalation not only fleetingly feels less stressful, less permanent, and less defining, it could also feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. As a child in 4th grade, my teacher explained to me that a synonym, no, a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. So we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? And so that's it. The true nature of all that we perceive, emote, intend, or reason, recall, or imagine is this: that it is something that we can notice as we breathe in and something that we can release as we breathe out. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not permanently, but enough to help us to cope with life's vicissitudes. Enough to help us to cope with the slings and arrows of life's outrageous fortune. Enough to help us to be the loving and peaceful person that our dog already thinks we are. Let us return to this morning's opening passage. So, what is the supreme secrecy of the primal continuum? Well, the continuum is all that we experience, all that we perceive, emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine. What does it mean for it to be primal? When many years ago, I ordered a book which had the salacious title, Naked Awareness. I thought, oh boy, it's going to be naughty, naughty Tantra. Imagine my disappointment when I bought the book and started reading it, only to realize that naked awareness was a metaphor for vulnerability, for being vulnerable to the full spectrum of perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. The pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. So what's the supreme secrecy of this vulnerable awareness? Simply that as we relax into our exhalation, it feels at least a little bit less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even less solid. This experience cannot be believed. It cannot be reasoned. It cannot be heard about, despite the ravings of patriarchy, which talk about the whispered lineage. The only way we experience it is by passively cooperating with our autonomic nervous system. Back in the 1970s, there was a series of commercials for automotive parts. So AR for good wrote an excellent question. So when we have ADHD, the stereotypical description of ADHD is no concentration. A more precise description of the symptoms of ADHD would be interest-based focus. So when we have, which explains why virtually everybody who is correctly diagnosed with ADHD can experience involuntary hyperfocus. I used to call it brainstorms before I went and met with professionals who explained it to me. So there's a difference between a spontaneous hyperfocus and a contrived focus. A spontaneous hyperfocus can be productive, but it comes with a price tag. As someone who has had ADHD and autism his entire life, I can say for certain that yes, great breakthroughs can come from a spontaneous hyperfocus, but we are at the end of the hyperfocus, we are exhausted. We are physically exhausted and emotionally exhausted and mentally exhausted and emotionally raw. And we need a snack and a rest afterwards. So our job is to neither chase spontaneous hyperfocus nor flee from it, but to recognize that when it comes, to make the most of it, and to understand that when it leaves, and it will leave, that we must practice strategic self-care. If not for ourselves, then for the sake of our pets and our roommates and our partners and our children. We don't want to be crappy and grumpy and bite their heads off like a post-coital praying mantis. So in order to prevent that, self-care is important. So ADHD is a neurological condition. It's not a set of behaviors. It's caused by a differently wired brain. That's why it fits on the umbrella of neurodivergence. It's not a behavioral divergence. It's a neurological divergence. Now, it's kind of like neurodivergence. It's kind of like being a Stradivarius in a sea of Yamaha fiddles. A Yamaha fiddle is fine. It's great to start with. It's durable. It can handle the clumsiness of an elementary school child, and it's affordable. It's made of fiberglass or plastic. But the tone produced by the finest Yamaha fiddle cannot compare, or so I'm told, with the rich tones produced by an antique Stradivarius violin. Now, the antique Stradivarius violin is old and expensive and fragile. So even though there are certain advantages to a Stradivarius, there are also certain liabilities. Same thing with the Yamaha fiddle. There are many benefits and a few liabilities. So it's not that it's better to be neurodivergent. It's not that it's better to be neurotypical. Each comes with its own benefits and liabilities. So our job as someone with ADHD is not to pretend we don't have it. That is exhausting and unproductive. Our job is to recognize our strengths and our limitations and plan around them. And if you suspect you have ADHD, do whatever it takes to find a mental health care professional whose niche is the diagnosis and counseling of neurodivergence. You don't want to go to some hack who has no experience. That will do more harm than good. So if one has neurodivergence, can they still meditate? Depends. Contrived analysis and contrived contemplation is off the menu, but that's never been on the menu according to the Buddha. Cooperating with our autonomic nervous system is remarkably easy, even if we are neurodivergent, because the test of cooperating with our autonomic nervous system is not what we notice or how stable we notice it, but just that we notice what's going on as we breathe in and relax as best we can as we breathe out. We don't have to force the noticing. We don't have to force the relaxing. They're already present. All we need to do is cooperate with them intentionally. So sometimes as we sit in meditation, our experience is like a ghost town with a tumbleweed blowing across Main Street. Other times, our mind is like Manhattan at rush hour. Neither is good, neither is bad. They simply are. Our job is not to control it. I don't know if you're like me, but as a child, I watched a lot of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. And there was this one episode that has not aged well. It's culturally insensitive. But there's one episode where Bugs Bunny and Donald Duck wind up in the mysterious Middle East. At least it was called Mysterious Middle East way back in the 30s. And Daffy Duck stumbles upon an oil lamp and he rubs it, and out comes a genie. And at this point, Daffy Duck is consumed with gold fever, and he's scared the genie is going to steal his riches. And so he jumps on the genie's head and tries to shove it back in the oil lamp. And the genie turns red and bellows, "You have desecrated the genie of the lamp." And he swiftly punishes Daffy Duck. Similarly, when we try to repress our perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, or imaginings, it always bites us in the ass, and not in the fun, tingly way. So we go with the flow. We remember that sitting in meditation is like you and I paying $1 or $2 or 20 and going to the theater to watch a play. Our enjoyment, we will not have a good time in the play if we think that we're the producer or the director or the writer. If we somehow try to control the behaviors or utterances of the thespians on the stage, we're going to be miserable. But if we just kick back, enjoy our chair, enjoy the show, we're going to have a much better time. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let us sit and breathe and notice and relax. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, as I tend to check for questions sporadically. Whoops. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tonight's recitation, explanation, and practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.